Hi everyone, welcome to our December 2025 Cut Flower webinar. It's on hosting cut flower workshops and events for Fresh and Dried. So value-added interactive like experiences on the farm. So my name is Lindsay Pasho. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest New York team as an Ag Business Development Marketing Specialist and as a statewide agritourism specialist. I also own Adirondack Lavender, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the farm to give you kind of perspective of where this presentation is going to be going. So it's Adirondack Lavender is located in Keysville, New York. We grow lavender, grapes, sunflowers. Usually I experiment with a variety of different cut flowers in my high tunnel so that I can have different flowers that I can dry and then use for different value-added products throughout the season. But our main focus is lavender and U-Pick. All products from our farm shop are made on the farm. We host a variety of different events. We do a kids' day called Fairies in the Lavender. We do yoga in the lavender. A variety of different workshops. So lavender wreaths, wands, brooms. We're continuing to grow our different workshops that we do. And then we have a 12 by 36-foot building that we just purchased for this fall. And I'll get a little bit into the reason why we purchased that during this presentation. We don't do any weddings on the property, but we're slowly expanding over time, especially with what we're going to be offering for different workshops like in the future. In the past, we do between our yoga, our different workshops, we do about anywhere from 20 to 25 events in a 4-week time period on the weekends. And it's kind of like back to back different wreath making workshops and brooms and yoga. So it's a very busy 4 weeks that we have on the farm. So today we're going to be talking about like creating experience and products that fit your farm. So there's a lot of different products that you can develop, especially for flowers, either from fresh or dried. And these are just ideas that I came up with, or ones that we've done, or different like value-added products that I could turn into different workshops on the farm. So flower arrangement workshops, and I did F&D, so like fresh and dried is how I kind of categorize them. A bloom bar. That could be fresh or dried. You could be drying flowers and then put them into different containers. So a bloom bar is flowers are arranged by different like species in different containers. And then you have your customers go through and build like a bouquet out of those. It's a really neat event. And then also it's a great way to like not have to worry about your customers going into your field and cutting the flowers incorrectly or so. It's more like kind of a way to kind of control it, but you can also do bloom bars on the farm, off the farm, like at a farmer's market. I've seen people do those at like weddings. So it's a way to like kind of be able to bring your farm to different areas. Wreath making. So like you can do those with fresh or dried flowers, like flower crowns, fresh or dried. Soap making. That would be more like using like dried flowers into soap products. The reason why I put insurance there is depending on your insurance company, you may or may not be allowed to do this. There's different ways to make soaps that are out there. There are easy ways to do it where you already get like pre-made soap, kind of like a glycerin or I'm trying to think of the one that I've used in the past, but like a shea butter or something, like it's already formed and you just have to heat it up and then just pour it into different molds. Or there's the more complicated way to do it is like when you're going through the actual soap making products where you're using a lot of different ingredients and you're potentially using like lye. And the reason why insurance companies don't like sometimes soap making is because of that the actual process. Like lye can actually if you inhale it, it goes into your lungs. It's not good for you at all. That's why you have to do it in a well ventilated area. So you definitely need to check with your insurance company if you're able to do like a soap making class. Um, like a bath fizzy, bath bomb, like adding flowers to those different products. I used to go to a company called Lush every time I go into kind of a well-populated area like Montreal or New York City. I'd go there and I'd buy these like beautiful bath bombs that have a lot of flowers in it. They're, on a customer point of view, they're beautiful and everything, except they make a big mess in your bathtub. But people love those and would love to learn how to make those. Candles. So adding dried flowers to candles. You definitely want to check with your insurance company to see if that's going to be an issue with candles, with the glass, with the pouring of the heat, or sometimes with the flowers. There's been issues with fires. So you have to just double check with the insurance company. Another option is to do like potpourri. So you just have to figure out what you are growing for flowers and what's going to work best for your farms. I know like one of the flowers that I grew over the last couple of years is like zinnias. Love zinnias, but when drying them, they're not. I've tried drying them upside down. I've tried drying them in like putting them in a wire to kind of like try to see if they would just dry like open. Didn't work. It was a fail for me. So all those zinnias I'm actually going to be putting into a bath fizzy this year. So there's a lot of different options when it comes down to it. So now I'm going to get into like the logistics and considerations of putting on these different like workshops, events on your farms. So tips that I've learned is to start small and grow over time. The big thing is, are you going to have enough agricultural products to be able to host that workshop? And that like especially I know when I first started growing lavender, the first year or two, I would have never had enough lavender to do a wreath making class. Now I have so much lavender that the best thing for me to do is have those wreath making class on the farm. And because it takes up like at least 3 or 4 plants usually to do a 12-inch wreath. So just making sure you have enough product in the beginning, and then how much time will you need to commit on organizing the event. It usually takes a lot longer than you think it's going to. And then logistics of like start planning early. So figuring out your topic, your date, and your instructor, etc. So in the past, for me, even though my events are happening June, usually in June, end of June and July, in the past, I've always reached out to the instructor around March to figure out like what the topic's going to be, who the instructor going to be, how much time, and we come up with a schedule for like that 4-week section that we do the workshops. This year, we're actually going to be probably starting in January because we're actually going to be expanding our season probably from June 1st all the way into the fall because we now have a building that can host the workshops. So marketing. So marketing is always going to be key of how you're selling your products, but also how you're going to spread the word on the different workshops, events you're hosting. So there's a lot of different places to do marketing, and these are ones that I've used actually for all of mine. So I use social media, Facebook and Instagram to push out my workshops. Like the first year I did the lavender wreath making workshops, it was just basically social media. They were sold out within like 24 hours. Word of mouth. I always let people know when we're having events. I also put like posters up in the farm shop with all of our workshops and like the site to go to. Our website has upcoming events, and like especially the date of when I'm going to be releasing, and I make sure I put that on social media also is like June 1st is when I usually open up for all of my events. The reason why I wait is because I have to make sure that lavender has come back for the season. If the lavender is all dead in the field, I'm not going to be able to have like fresh lavender making workshops. but I might be able to have dried lavender workshops because I have lots of lavender from previous years. Local community events calendar. So like I put things on our um, our local TPAs, Tourist Promotion Agency, website of all of our workshops. The schools, that's another way to take and be able to spread the word is especially if you have some kids workshops that are coming up in the summertime. So like we're going to be doing like yoga in the lavender. Last year we did yoga in lavender for kids, and then this year we'll be doing that too. Make sure you have really beautiful photos, a description of what the customer is going to be creating, expectation of like where it's going to be located, and then clear pricing. And then also make sure they continuous push the actual workshop when it comes down to it. So event hosting and location. So this is lessons learned for myself and the farm is like where you are going to be hosting the event. Is it going to be under a tent, a pavilion, a closed building, umbrella picnic tables? Some of these work really good. Some of them don't work so good because you have to think of what the weather's going to be like. Will there be high winds? Will it be hot? Some people don't like the heat. Will it be too cold? So some people don't like the cold. Will it rain? So you have to put those type of considerations of where you're going to be hosting your event. Always have like an alternative for bad weather. So like if it's going to be like an alternative for like a location, rescheduling, a refund. Like in the past on my farm is we've actually hosted our events for a number of years under a 20 by 40 tent. I will say it didn't really work that well for us. Putting that tent up was a lot, even though it was a commercial tent, commercial stakes. It was nerve-wracking with the winds. And then if it was a little too cold, rain coming in on the sides, it worked for the first couple of years just to kind of get established, bring in revenue for the farm, but it wasn't ideal. We did like this past year umbrellas with picnic tables, but you have to worry about the umbrellas, you know, either popping out with the high winds or like if the high winds, if they're really held down nicely, the umbrella is like turning inside out. So it's important to have a really good space. This is what we are doing now moving forward is we have a 12 by 36 foot building. It's actually was made by the Amish community. It is screened in, so keep the insects out. It actually has electricity to it, so you can see like there's light switches on the walls. There's also a ceiling fan in the enclosed area. The windows are actually big enough to, as you can see, we're going to be putting an air conditioning unit in it. So it's just like a nice, relatively inexpensive building that was, I think, about probably like $15,000 versus, like building a major building. So we can fit in a number of picnic tables and then, kind of make it more comfortable for our customers in the future. So we're excited about this for next year. So when hosting your events, it's important to have a registration platform. If you're going to be hosting these events, I would advise people to do pre-registration. If people don't pre-register, they may wake up the morning of the event. I'm not registered for the event. I don't feel like going. But pre-registration really makes sure that people will show up. Then you've also got the funds, you know exactly how much you're going to be having to make. So you're going to want to make sure with determining a platform for registration that you have a current website or external website. You're going to want to make sure you update it regularly. You're going to want to make sure you test the sales prior to launching. Make sure it's user friendly. Have a friend test it to see if it works for them. I usually take and test it with my own credit card for the business so that, and then I also do my own refund back on the credit card. So make sure that you take the online payment and offer refunds and to make sure you have a clear cancellation policy. And I'm going to talk about that in this next slide or two. And then make sure that you could potentially send like email reminders. It makes things a lot easier. I always usually send an email reminder directly from the platform, but then also like even a follow-up one with maybe some more details of like what they can bring into the workshop. Make sure that you're able to view the registration platform easily and also print the registration easily. Because you may not be the person running the workshop and you want to be able to give like a registration list. I know the platform that I use, it actually gives me notification like when it's getting low, when it goes from like 12 people originally for workshop all the way down to like you have 5 remaining, you have 1 remaining, which is really nice. So make sure that you just have, like as I mentioned, like pictures, a clear description, and then maybe any other details that you might want to include. Cancellation policy. So it's really important to have a clear cancellation policy. Directions on time to cancel. So like for my operation, I have it has to be done 72 hours ahead of time because I need to be able to fill those spots for the instructor to teach the class. But also know how much I need to like be able to cut from the field. Make sure you have clear directions of how they're going to need to cancel, if it's either via email or a phone call for cancellation. And then also know where should you post your cancellation policy. So usually have a cancellation policy like with the description of the events at checkout, like in your email reminders. Those are all places to have that information. So creation of the product. So invest time in creating the product ahead of time. You're also going to want to have an example product to show your clients. So it's good to do it ahead of time, plus be able to take pictures of what the product is going to be they're creating for marketing. You also need to know how much time it's going to take to complete it. Is this something that's going to take 5 minutes? Is it going to take 2 hours? Is it going to take 3 hours? And also create a step-by-step breakdown of how to create this. And I always like to tell somebody, instruct someone ahead of time on this whole process. So bring a friend over and like if it was a wreath making class, have your friend do it. So instructor. So I always like to tell people you don't have to do it all. You can always have an outside like independent contractor employee teach this workshop. They just need to make sure they have a friendly personality, knowledge like of the farm, ability to break down information and teach, be a really good timekeeper, and also, be willing to like clean up afterwards. Also have clear communication of how that person is going to be paid. Are they going to be paid that day? Or they're going to be paid like 3 weeks from now. So also supplies. So it's important to know exactly what supplies you're going to need, especially if you're going to have an outside instructor. So you're going to want to create a supplies checklist, determine how much product you'll be using. So like I know for a lavender wreath making class, how many bins I need to produce, because I know for a 14-inch wreath glass, it's going to take 1,600 stamps. And I'll get into like in a little bit why we do that. So pricing, making sure you determine a price for your product. Make sure it's affordable for the community. It covers your instructor costs. It covers the material supply costs. And then it covers your time for all the marketing, that customer interaction. The amount of customer interaction is going to be very timely when it comes down to it. I've noticed over the years with just questions. So determine your agricultural products. So how much agricultural products do you need for the event? Determine like your space and space availability. So like we've been doing our classes off of picnic tables. We can put 2 people on a picnic table across from each other, and you see how they are stacking up they're lavender. So when I mentioned 1,600 stems, so those are 40 little bundles of 40 stems is what they have to basically count out. Um, does it need to be processed ahead of time? So when I say processed, does like if you're going to be doing dried flower workshops with some making some type of product, that's going to take some time to dry the product. So it might be something that, you're producing the flowers in the summertime and running the workshops in the fall and in the winter time, or maybe it's something that you're doing, you're drying it for next season. And then do you need to grow the product first or use the product in next year's event, as I just mentioned? So reminders and email confirmation. So it's always important to send an email confirmations once they're registered for the event. And then do a follow-up email closer to the cancellation policy deadline, and then do a reminder email a day or two before the event. And a lot of these different registration platforms actually have pre-done templates to make it easier, so you can just like kind of push a button and get a button and they're sent right out to all your customers. So setup and preparation. So how much time will it take to set up for the event? That's really important to know if you're going to need to like set up a tent, set up tables, how far out. So I always think it's really good to have like a timeline of when you like might have to get the different supplies together, the product, the setup, the day of the event, and then after the event of having an actual timeline of everything. How much time will it take to harvest the product? So I know like depending on how many lavender wreath making workshops we have, if it's going to take me, half an hour, is it going to take me maybe 2 hours? Is it going to take me a whole day? So that's really important to like kind of get down of how much product you're going to need. And then you might have to like grab some products from the field the day of the event if need be. What other supplies you might need, and then making sure that you have your registration list available so you can just check off people when they arrive. So this is time management and logistics. So I like to say that from my experience over the years, the customers tend to take longer to complete a workshop. An example is 14-inch lavender wreath making for my mom or for myself to do takes me an hour. When I've run the workshops in the past, they've taken anywhere from 2 hours to 3 hours plus. So it's important to really break that down of how you're going to do it. So I always, my favorite show is like the Best Baking Show in Brand. How they do all the time management and the challenges, and they kind of tell people like you had this much time left. So I kind of run my workshops like that. Is I usually, when I would do it as a 2 hour workshop, I'd say the first hour and a half you have to make your bundles. So I say you have to count for 40 stems and you need 40 bundles of those. You have an hour and a half to go. And then along the way, I'm like, okay, we're half an hour in, we're 45 minutes in, you have 30 minutes to complete it. Like I keep going down in the time, and it really helps to push people along. And then the type of experience based on the thing. So pre-heart, I would suggest too, is like depending on what type of workshop is, because I have friends who run lavender wreath making workshops, and they actually have their customers come in and cut the lavender. That's not going to work to get it done in 2 hours. It would be a half a day or a full day basically to run the workshop. So like sometimes it's important to pre-harvest all supplies versus having the customer harvest it. So the day of the event, provide registration list to the instructor. Make sure you pay the instructor, keep to a tight schedule as I mentioned, the Great British Baking Show. Cleanup. So have participants help with basic cleanup, cleanup day of the event or next day. And then it's always important at the end of the event is like to have your farm shop open. A lot of the times, like the clients will like have such great experience and they'll want to buy other products on the farm. Um, they might actually purchase. A lot of times, I've had people purchase additional like lavender to make their wreaths when they get home for their friends. It's also a way at the end of the event, make sure information on future events. So if you're going to host other workshops on the farm or events, and then insight on participants on like future events that they might want. So ask the customers what they would like to see in the future. So customer service, hospitality is always important. So um, having what makes the experience enjoyable for the customer, like having water and snacks. So I always tell my customers like feel free to bring whatever you like for a drink or snack and stuff. I do warn them beginning of the workshop, like we're going to be moving fast, so there's not be a lot of time for that, like that, but you know, people are going to need something to drink and eat possibly along the way. Um, we don't provide any of that. I do provide bottled water when necessary. I always have like at least a big 30 pack of bottled water for customers, and that's been really helpful on those hot days, makes people happy. Um, but because of regulations providing food and drinks, you want to be careful. So that's why we suggest to my customers to bring their own food and drinks. Also helps with dietary issues. And then customer service and feedback. So follow up with customers to see how well the experience went during the workshop. It also allows you to make adjustments to the workshop based on that feedback for the future. So just making sure that everybody has a really good experience in the long run. And then I'm just gonna kind of like mention like when we do our lavender wreath making workshop. So this is for like one of our dried workshops. Um, so the reason why we do the workshop the way that we do is we make our customers count the number of stems into bundles so that they have a consistent looking wreath. Because not everybody is crafty at all. Like I've met a lot of people over the years that just don't. It's not. It doesn't come easily. So by keeping it consistent with how they're supposed to put it together, it makes that the wreath that they walk away with looks really nice. It also limits waste because otherwise, like people don't know, like they might just be wasting a lot of the product along the way. So like for our dried one, so we tell people to make 25 um 20 stem bundles, so 25 bundles with 20 stems in it. Tie the strings around each other. And then I usually go through and show them exactly like what that actual length is going to be for those bundles when they are cutting it. So they keep it very consistent. I always like have people go to a certain point and then like everybody catch up and then show like the next step of like when we're wrapping it. And then the ability to like the finished product to like add a variety of different flowers. And then like sometimes with different workshops, we have like post-event instructions. So like for a fresh lavender workshop, you don't want to like put it in direct sunlight. You don't you're gonna have to like tighten the back of the wire, and I show people how to do that. So it's important to have like any additional instructions that they might do because otherwise they're gonna be calling or emailing. So it's good to have all the information provided during the workshops. So this is my contact information, and I'm gonna stop the recording to open it up.